Welcome to episode 48 of Kowalski Analysis. I'm your host, Rob Kowalski. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys can hear me coming in okay, go ahead and drop a I in the comments below, just the letter I. Let me know that you can hear me. And feel free to share this out if you like. I got a pretty exciting guest tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about him right now. His name is Skylar Lewis, and he's a Christian entrepreneur who went from being dead broke to running multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in less than 6 years. Skylar founded Rise Up Kings. It's a 3-day seminar, and it's a professional network of Christian business owners to help men achieve their God-given potential in their faith, family, fitness, and finances. The program has now helped men in over 40 states. So I'm excited to speak with Skylar. Before I jump in, I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to my sponsor, Micah Hughes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all now so we can take a look at his logo. If you guys are wanting to do anything in the world of real estate, please hit up Micah. Micah does everything from buying homes to helping you sell your home to real estate investing. He helps people actually do a financial snapshot where they can prepare for buying a home. Maybe that's in your goals in the next year or more. He can help you. Please give Mike a call at 443-532-8450, or you can reach him by email, and I'll put his link in the notes as always. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, welcome to Kowalski Analysis, Skylar Lewis. How's it going today?
It's going great, man. Happy to be on the show.
And you're in Cali, right?
Yep. Over Southern California, over here in Newport Beach. It's a little gloomy this morning, but overall, I love the weather.
Is that where you were born and raised? Newport?
I was actually born and raised in a place called Hemet, a smaller town, and just through a series of I'm a big believer in associations. You are who you surround yourself with. A firm believer. So that was a little bit of a lower income town. So I evolved from there, purposely moved to Menifee, then a city called Murrieta, then a city called Temecula, and then went to Costa Mesa. And then we ended up in Newport Beach, which happens to be where there's a big hub of Christian business kingdom builders that are pretty ultra wealthy. And so I just like surrounding myself with people that are doing big things. So I ended up in Newport Beach.
I love it, man. I preach that myself. You're average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and show me your friends will show you your future. But I remember I was watching like a talk show years ago, and they said if you want to become wealthy, the best thing you could do would be like to move into a wealthy neighborhood, even if you have to like to rent a room or something, and like imagine and like just get around that because it rubs off on you.
Yeah, 100%, and I believe that. So it's funny because when we were in Temecula, we had I started from the ground up. I grew up in like a little 700 square foot home, mobile home actually in Hemet, and so I always wanted to be successful, and so eventually I kind of made it to the top of the third or fourth city that I was in. We were living in one of the nicer areas and one of the nicer houses in the entire city. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to, we've kind of hit this place where we're doing pretty well. Like, I think it's time for us to move. And so we decided to move to Orange County, which $1 million house in Temecula was a very nice house. $1 million house in Orange County was 1,000 square foot dump. So we literally started at the bottom so we could kind of be the small fish in a big pond instead of being the big fish in a small pond. And so that allowed us to kind of have some more space to grow and realize we're not as cool as we thought we were. Right. And so, yeah.
What was that? How long ago?
That was about 5 years ago.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. You got a different house since then?
Yeah. Like 4 or 5 different houses, actually. We move a lot. We've lived 11 places in 11 years, 11 different houses. It's wow. It's kind of a lot, especially we have 2 kids, a 5 and an 8-year-old. So it was funny on one of my 5-year-old son Jeremiah. He at different points in the year for parent school teacher conferences or whatever, they asked him, hey, tell us what you like about food. What do you like about your parents? What do you like about school? And then the last question we saw that was written down, what do you like about vacations? And he said, looking at houses. So he's literally like, when we go on vacation, we go explore houses. And so that's literally that's what he's going to remember from a kid, like the vacations and going into houses and checking them out. It's kind of, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out later.
So he's always the new kid in school, I'm guessing.
Yeah, luckily he's in kindergarten. So
Okay.
it's his first deal. Our 8-year-old, we luckily kept him in the same school. He's only been to 2 schools because we've moved a lot of places, but we've been in the same area for the last 4 or
Okay.
5 years. Same
Yeah.
general vicinity, so we could keep him in the same school.
Yeah. Me and my mom moved around a lot when I was a kid. I think I went to 11 different schools in 12 years. I counted once, but
Yeah.
it wasn't for nearly as cool of a reason as what you're
Well,
doing.
no, that's what I did. I went to, I think it was 7 different elementary and middle schools
Wow.
growing up.
It's
Yeah, and then
traumatic, dude. Like when you're always the new kid in school, especially when you're poor, because you don't have like the cool clothes, like and you're just trying to figure out how to fit in. Oh man, it was tough.
it was. I remember walking up like I'd be the new kid, and there'd be these group of kids in a circle, and I just remember like walking up, like having to like figure out how to get into the circle because I
Yeah.
was always the new kid, so I'd have to walk up and make friends. And I remember just the awkward feeling of insecurity walking up to these friends. They're all friends, and
Yeah.
then trying to make friends with them as like a little 8-year
Yeah.
old,
Dude.
9-year old. It was challenging, but I think it served me later on because now I have the ability to just talk with people
Right.
and make friends.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to jump into things.
Because for me, it was always like trying to figure out what group to go with. Like, do I want to wear my pants down real low, or do I, like, am I trying to be the preppy, or go with like the goth look? Like, I was trying to find a group to fit in with, and I was like, I wasn't even sure. Do I want to be an athlete? You know,
Did you go goth?
no, I kind of just did like, the thing is I couldn't really commit to any of them because I didn't have the money. Like you had to have to like buy the things to kind of fit in the group. So I was like a little bit of, I don't know what I was actually. I wasn't popular. Like in high school, people, because I got really popular after high school. It was weird. I don't know what happened, but people assumed that I was popular in school. I wasn't good with girls. I got stood up for my junior prom, my senior prom. I got expelled actually as a senior from high school, so I never made it to my senior prom. But I was never good with ladies in school, and I think I don't know if you know my story, but I became a stripper when I was 19 years old, and the part of that was the insecurity because I thought like if I'm good with girls, that means I'm cool or I'm a man or whatever, and started stripping when I was 19 and became very sexually active after that. But in hindsight, obvious, I just, I question all of the reasons, like why at like 15 years old, my goal was to be a stripper. I was at 15, and I'm like, that's not normal. But I'm sure it had a lot to do with all the insecurity and, so anyway.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, that's what I've realized is as adults, we're actually operating off of programming that we got when we were when we were kids. So
Yeah.
what our parents said, what we experienced, all of the mindsets. There were some studies that were done that about 80% of our mindsets and our belief systems are in place by the time we're 8 years old.
Mm,
So what we believe about women, families, money, what our parents said, oh, money's not easy to come by. Money doesn't fall off trees. All these little things ingrained, oh, money's hard to come by. Okay.
yeah.
So for the rest of our lives as an adult, we don't even know it, but we're purposely making it hard to attract money and finance and success into our lives. And so
Jeez.
all of these belief systems came from when we were children. We
Right.
was watching our parents get divorced or watching fights and little kids creating these little beliefs about these
Mhm.
things like, oh wow, so marriage is hard, or
Right.
this is how you're supposed to treat a woman. Like almost everything we believe. And so there's a bunch of basically adults that are really have belief systems of an 8-year-old that are internalized that they don't realize they're operating off of. And so that's why I love personal growth and personal development, is because people can get a chance to go back and say, what did I learn as a kid? What did my
Yeah.
mom teach me? What did my parents say? What did my teachers say? Did they tell me I wasn't good at math? Is that why I struggle with numbers? Like what the heck? Who programmed me? And let me go back and like reprogram myself. Those things may have served me for a little while, but those things do not serve me anymore. And which ones don't serve me? You know?
Right. Yeah. I did Landmark. I don't know if you ever heard of
Okay.
Landmark
Yeah, yeah,
a while
yeah.
back, and they talk a lot about that, about, life is empty and meaningless and how we attach meaning to all, different things that happen, and they become these belief systems, like you're saying, and they don't serve us. They might have served us at one point, but they're not serving us anymore. So no, I love it. So CEO of 3 8-figure companies. Is that right?
2 8-figure, one relatively decent startup actually. So I run a $10 million water and fire restoration company. So that's my I've had that for about 10 years. Luckily, we've kind of designed that, or I've designed it and systemized it to where I show up 1 day a week to that. It was 2 days a week for about 4 years, and so I have a good management and executive team in place with some. I've systemized a lot of the processes and to make everything like to be able to turn it into like a machine.
Love it.
Most companies, most
Yeah.
owners struggle getting out of their businesses. They're like stuck in it. They're literally,
They're in a job.
yeah, yeah. Even up to 10 million, 15, 20, 30,
Yeah.
40. I mean, big companies or $1 million or a $500,000 company. They're literally just doing all the tactical things and they're not able to think strategically to really grow the business and pull themselves out. And so that's kind of my passion is I love teaching people or supporting people on how to get out of that, how to get out of that, how to get out of the business.
Dude, I
Really.
want to talk to you for sure. I'm serious. After this week, like I read the E Myth
Yeah.
several
Yeah.
times. I've listened to it just recently. And I'm
Yeah.
so recently the City Fam, the nonprofit I helped get off the ground. We're doing something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. Are you familiar? Okay, so it's been
Very.
great. Honestly, I love it. We have a coach, somebody's coming in, holding our hands, and it's really starting to run the organization. You know, our meetings, our to-dos, our rocks, all the language that you even use with everybody else. I like it. I really like it a lot. But systems have always been a challenge for me. So, I would be curious to talk to you and see if there's not some way that I could utilize you. I don't know if that's part of Rise Up Kings, which we'll get into. But anyway, that's kind of
Love
something
it,
we
man.
maybe we'll
I
try to
love
chat.
that you're on that journey of trying to figure that out. Some people have settled that it's not really possible, and then there's the few other people that are like, "Hey, I think it's possible. Let me figure out how to do it."
Yeah, love it. Cool. So we got a fire restoration. Actually, one of my best friends owns Thomasville Restoration. I don't know if it's 10 million. I don't think it's that big, but it's pretty big. It's in the millions. And that's like mostly like local, like Maryland, Delmarva maybe.
Yeah.
But great guy, great Christian dude. Actually, I'll help lead him to the Lord. And but he's in the same
Nice.
business. Yeah. So that's one. What are the other two?
So I own a internet marketing company, Overnight Branding, which is kind of just something I do on the side that kind of runs itself actually. And then my primary business that I'm focusing almost every day on now is Rise Up Kings, and that's my true calling and my passion and my purpose. Like I'm 100% clear. It's what I was designed to build based on my previous kind of crazy life experiences also to do. So to
Yeah.
support men on their journey.
Which one's the startup? Is it Rise Up Kings?
No, it's well, Rise Up Kings is about 2 years old. Overnight Branding is about 4 or 5 years old, but I still call it a startup because I haven't invested it. It's still in its growth phase.
Okay. So were you raised as a Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Raised as a Christian. Yeah, I grew up. My mom was a very devout Christian, and she was awesome. Super loving heart, but then kind of the challenges she was very dedicated Christian, but then struggled on some of the personal development side. She didn't have a lot of personal development, so she
Hmm.
struggled with some disciplines, behaviors, other things that led into her living kind of a more challenging life. And so I saw God, but then I also saw drinking and everything else that came with somebody that struggled with actually not reprogramming themselves, not going
Right.
back and really seeing like what, because her childhood was kind of traumatic.
Right.
So I grew up seeing that. So I definitely was a Christian, but I was what you call like a lukewarm Christian. So for a long time,
How'd you
just
meet Jesus?
um, I met Jesus when I was at a youth camp when I was young. I would say I don't recall the exact age, but at 8 or 9 years old,
Sure.
at a youth camp, and I love those. I have a passion for youth camps. So yeah, even though I met Jesus, it was still that journey of figuring out how to live it out.
Sure.
Uh, how to live it out. What about you? When did you?
Same. I met Jesus at a summer camp. I was kind of like the inner city kid. I went to this church that was in the neighborhood because a couple other guys or kids I knew went there. But we were really bad. Like we would egg the youth pastor's car and just we
Yeah.
were really bit like, bully kids. I wasn't there for anything good. I mean, it was, you were just there to hang out. And then, but I did pray the sinner's prayer a few times. I raised my hand at camp and prayed the sinner's prayer, but I never felt God's presence or heard his voice for real. So when I got older, because my mom really, didn't have it, like she was raised in the Christian home, but she went through some trauma herself. And so when she became an adult, church wasn't in the equation for her. And so it was never reinforced. So when it didn't stick with me, and when I became an adult, I guess, like you say you were lukewarm, I was ice cold. If I was a Christian, I was ice cold because my God was pleasure, and I pursued it as hard as possible. And I didn't even know really if God was real. When I saw people pray, I wondered if anybody was really up there listening. And then I got baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was 27, and that changed everything.
That was the change. That was the game changer right there.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. No, I haven't lived perfectly. I was red hot for a few years, backslid inadvertently, ice cold again for a few years, trying to get back, but didn't know how. I love that parable of the lost sheep, the prodigal, the lost son, the lost sheep, and the lost coin. And somebody broke it down for me one time. It was like the son was lost. He knew he was lost, and he knew how to get back. The sheep was lost, knew it was lost, didn't know how to get back. The coin was lost, didn't know it was lost, and didn't know how to get back. So I've been like all three of those different points. One point I was the coin, I was lost, I didn't even know I was lost. Another point I was lost, I didn't know how to get back. And then, one time, and eventually I was the son where I was lost and I knew how to get back, and then I eventually did. So
Well, I think that journey happens for a reason, though, too. So using that, right? So that everything you've gone through, I think, and maybe you're in alignment with that, but our pain many times will lead to our purpose or the path that we're supposed to be on, and the impact that we have. I've had a lot of interesting struggles with different things, and so it allows me to speak to men and support men at a whole different level. And so you're able to, hopefully you realize like you're the pain that you went through, dude, the struggles that you had is usually tied to your like life purpose.
really is.
Yeah.
That's what City Fam was for me, is because the reason I backslid is when I saw I was a club promoter. So I had this really crazy it was a very active but crazy social life. I was always in the clubs. And then I had this radical encounter with Jesus, and was like, I had to stop all that, cut off my girlfriend. I stopped having sex for 6 years. I cut off all my friends were partiers, cut them off, quit my job. And then it was like, okay, how do I live? Like, what do I even do for fun now? And there was just nothing out there. I mean, I went to church on Sunday, but 6.5 days a week, I was like sitting around by myself, bored and
Hmm.
lonely. And eventually I backslid because I just needed to be around people. So I went to the bars again because I was like, well, this is where the people are that I could relate to. And I was thinking I could influence them from the inside, like from if I went to them, and they influenced me more than I influenced them. And then I, made a mess. But it was through that I started City Fam, which for me has been this, my passion, like you're saying, where it's all about doing life together, but basically curing Christian boredom in many ways, because I think it's a real struggle. Like, it's easier. I don't want to say it's easier. You might not feel it as much because you're married with kids, but when you're single, man, and you're older, you're like the forgotten group in the church. And you're just kind of like, they're like, don't sin. See you next Sunday. Like, okay, thanks. It's hard out there. So that's kind of what we're doing. But I love it. It's exactly what you said. If I hadn't gone through that, it wouldn't be nearly as meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not able to connect with people until you actually experience some of their pain. You can't. There's no way. You don't know. Like
Yeah.
it was interesting. I went through a challenging time of anxiety. I never had anxiety my entire life. And so this was like 2 years ago, where actually like something triggered in me this intense anxiety, like out of nowhere. And like I saw this homeless person and got really concerned that I was going to be like homeless someday. I'm like mentally crazy. And so it just totally triggered me and shot me into like this crazy thought pattern where I couldn't actually get out of it. I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to become crazy. Like my worst
Wow.
fear. And so I just had this really insane anxiety for a month, and I tried everything, every personal development technique you could do, NLP, all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't kick it. And then I finally gave it up to God on like day 30. I'm like, you know what, God, just I accept whatever's going to happen. Just take this from me. I'm going to just trust in you. Like I give up on trying to fix it with the other things. I completely give it to you. Like some people think they surrender. Many times they're not actually surrendering though in their life. And so that was a true moment of giving it to God.
Yeah.
People say, oh yeah, I'm giving it to God. No, you're not fully. So I finally gave it to God. And the next morning I woke up and it was completely gone, the anxiety. And so it was powerful, really powerful moment for me. And then I ended up connecting with my sister, and I didn't realize she had anxiety at that level. And so I told her about it. She's like, oh, wow. She's like, that's what I experienced regularly. I'm like, whoa, shoot. Like, this is what she had like mentioned it. And I was like, oh, that sucks. I feel bad for you. But I didn't really know what anxiety was.
Right.
Until I experienced it. Then once I experienced it, I'm like, I have a whole new level of appreciation for people that actually experience anxiety. Now I know it.
Yeah.
But until then, like I don't know. You don't know until you've experienced someone that had a loss or someone that's had an addiction or someone that's gone through stuff. You don't actually know. So that's actually a gift when people get to experience some of these traumas is a gift because you can relate to the other people now at their actual level.
Right.
So it's interesting. I accept the challenges in my life because I know they build character and give me a different leverage point or vantage point with and connection with other people.
I totally know what you're saying about the giving it up to God, because you don't fully give it up until you really have no other options. And it's scary. Yeah. It's scary to give it up to God because you're like, you're trusting that he's going to do it. And if he doesn't, you're effed. You're screwed.
Yeah.
So for me, what happened was, well, the story that relates to what you're saying is I recommitted myself to sexual purity about 10 years ago and really started to understand sex in a way that I never had, and maybe that other human beings don't, because from living at polar ends of the spectrum. So I created this platform inadvertently, honestly. I just started making videos about it. And then one of the videos went viral, and then I wrote a book, and I kind of created this thing. And then I hit this point of depression. I've never been in love. So here I am, 48 years old at this point. I've never been in love. And I'm not the kind of guy that will ever settle, because I've always, grown bored with women, the women that I've dated at some point. And I know it was because I had sex early. I wasn't asking myself the hard questions on the front end. Anyway, what I'm saying, I hit this point of like depression because I'd been single so long, and life got really hard. And I was sober for 6.5 years. I started drinking again, self-medicating, because I was so depressed. And I made a mistake with a girl a couple years ago. I had sex while I was drunk, and then had a close call about 6 months later, tried to quit drinking again, was super depressed. And then I was like so scared, because I'm like, I created this platform. I can't fix this depression. I can't quit drinking, and I'm afraid I'm going to have sex. And I just was like, I gave it to God. That was the only thing I had left at that point. And it was so scary, because I'm like, I feel like everything that I've been done and invested in was on the line, and there was no recourse. There was nothing I could do to fix it. And, fortunately he took it away. I still do have red wine. Actually, I'm on a fast of all alcohol right now, but I still do have it somewhat regularly. But it's never been an issue for me. Like that spirit of lust that came on me in the past is gone. So, and the only thing I can think is it was God, because there's no other explanation for it. So, kind of a long answer, but
yeah.
That was
no, it's powerful. It's accurate. So, and that's the challenging part. Sometimes I think we try so hard to stop things, and then at some points, like I struggled with porn for a long time, and it was very challenging. But there was a point also where I was able to help break away from that. And so I think it's kind of disappointing, because you'd love to fix every area of your life, right, immediately. Maybe God's just not ready to have these things fixed yet, which is kind of a trip, right? Or maybe we're not ready to fully give it to God. I don't know which one plays into the other more, but it's I feel like life just kind of works out the way it's supposed to work out.
So what was the point where you really kind of came to Jesus and you got on fire for him? How did that happen?
It was really when I met my wife. I feel like my wife played such a critical role. Women, man, women are powerful. They play an important role for men. Men are a little more immature in general, you know, and so women help balance guys out. I feel like so she balanced me out. So I met her at like this club, like this dance club thing, and so when I was like 21, and we kicked it off and just completely fell in love, um, and so anyway, so that was the turning point when I wanted to make change for her and to be the man that I knew I could be for Jessica. And so
Right.
I started making major changes. I ended up making a major mistake and cheated on her like early on in the relationship, which caused a lot of freaking damage, and trust issues and all kinds of stuff. And so that's been a interesting journey, but it just showed where I was at that time.
Yeah.
Just lustful, sleeping around, just doing just dumb stuff.
Right.
And so, it was just my behaviors. I didn't even realize how bad they were until you start to try to shift some of them. You're like, oh wow, this is some bad patterns that I'm participating in. And so, yeah, so I started just making a major shift, growing closer to God. We started going to church, and that was kind of a pivotal point. A big shift for me from age 21, 22, 23, 24, like in that range, started, yeah, really living more for God. Again, not perfect though, because I still had a lot of bad habits and patterns. And so they eventually shifted where I feel like right now I'm in definitely the best place of my life, like the last 3 years of my entire life, like with Christ.
What's your morning routine like?
Yeah, man, I have I'm pretty disciplined. I'm like a peak performance kind of guy. I love peak performance. So I work with men regularly and I'm support them and through Rise Up Kings. And so I teach, I won't go into what I teach, but my morning routine is I wake up at 4 a.m. So 4 a.m. daily. And then I have a full morning routine. I hop up, I grab my coffee, I sit on the couch, I grab my Bible, I read for my goal is 20 to 30 minutes. I pray. I then after that I review my goals for the day, for the month, for the year. I have some affirmations that I read that are all on my computer, and then I go work out at 5 o'clock, and I work out from 5 to 6, and then I do some things to invest in my marriage and with my kids in the morning, and that's my morning routine. So from like 4 to 6:30, I know most of my wins knocked out for the whole day.
Love it,
And
man.
so
That's awesome.
I track all that stuff. So I'm a huge tracker. So I've been tracking like how often I have sex, when I wake up, what I eat, all that stuff like the last 7 years, since
Wow.
2014. I still have my tracking spreadsheets from then. I have them all every year.
So talk to me about the sex thing, because I'm curious. So you track how often you have sex?
Well,
What
yeah,
is
because
that? Yeah, what is that indicator of?
Yeah, so tons of people in business track KPIs and track metrics. I mean, if you're a decent business person, you should be tracking stuff in your business. You should be tracking
Right.
your profit. You should be tracking other areas. So people are really great trackers in business. I've just figured because I struggled for many years trying to stay balanced in my life and business. I would go all out in business.
Right.
I remember just going all out, and then Jessica, we'd have some issues, and I could tell like stuff was blowing up, and I'd say, "What's wrong?" She's like, "You're not spending enough time with me." And so I go, "Okay, well, let me take some time off from work. I'll spend more time with you." And then guess what would happen at work?
Right. Things would fall apart over
Things
there.
would fall apart. So I'd go back to work, and then I would handle that, and then I'd go back to Jessica because she needed me. And it was a really, and so it was a completely an ineffective way to operate, which is how most people operate right now.
Right.
And so I eventually started putting like systems and processes in place that I used in business in my personal life. So I started building tracking spreadsheets for my personal life. I started being intentional. I intentionally like did things that I know would invest in my marriage every day instead of waiting till her cup ran dry to invest in it. So I was like, how do I keep her cup full every day? So I do things right now with our Rise Up Kings. We teach to do things every day. Like, what can you, like yesterday, I wrote a whole email about what I was grateful for to Jessica. The day before that, I went and got coffee. The day before that, like, so I'm daily just doing something small or big that can fill her cup up and keep her cup full. Because otherwise it'll keep dropping down. And then when I need to go work on the business, she'll blow up and say, "You're not spending enough time with me." So I figured, okay, cool. The solution is just keep her cup full. Just keep
So
her
let me
cup
ask you
full.
this.
Yeah.
Does she know about the spreadsheets?
Yeah, she eventually saw the spreadsheets for sure. So she saw So whatever you track improves. That's just the period. If you start tracking working out, you're going to start working out more. If you start tracking your food, it's going to start improving. Like whatever you track improves. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I could apply that towards, sex. And so I added, intimacy to the spreadsheet. And so I started tracking that in like 2015 and started out like one time a week and then just started like tracking it. And then, eventually it started increasing. And so then she found it, and then she eventually got kind of weird about it. She's like, "That's weird that you're tracking intimacy."
Put down the actual length of time, and
no, I don't go that deep in all that. That's next level. That's next level tracking right there. But no, so I started tracking it. She eventually found out, and she was like, "Okay." So she eventually was weird, and then she was like, "Okay," because I told her, "Hey, babe, whatever is important to me, I track." Like, period.
right.
So intimacy with you is very important to me. So I want to make sure I'm doing it and I'm intentional with it. And so she eventually got on board and like for years was actually supporting the numbers. She's like, we hit our goal this week. So that, which made it kind of fun. And so that's kind of how that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I mean, keep the romance alive, whatever it takes.
You have to. No, that's a critical piece. Guys, when they're bored romantically, will wander. Women, when they're bored romantically, like it's no good. And that's why, like, I don't know, I love marriage and passion and figuring out how to support men to be a little bit more masculine, to tap into like a different side, to create some more passion in their marriage. You have to have sex. Like, it is a critical piece of a marriage.
Yeah. If you don't, I mean, if not that, why not just stay single? I mean, of course there's companionship, I guess, too. But like, people ask me, why do you want to get married? I'm like, companionship, guilt-free sex. Those are my top two. Like, I want to, I mean, if you're not having sex, then the person could be your friend.
Guilt-free sex.
Well, like I've only known guilty sex.
Guilt sex. Yeah, feeling bad after. No, I like that.
So tell me about Rise of Kings. Like, where did that come from? The inspiration for that I mean, you kind of touched on a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of stemmed from all of that. So I just remember this fight of staying balanced, and also there was that was a key piece. And then I had done a lot of personal development. So I remember I had created some success in my life, and I was sitting on my couch. I had just had Brendan, I think he was like 2 or 3 at that time, and we had our house. I had my baby. I had the marriage. I had some money. I'm sitting there. I thought, like, is this all? Like, what do I do now? Do I keep going? Do I slow down? Do I stay? Like, what do you do when you're kind of happy with the way things are going? And so I remember the saying, you're either growing or you're dying. And so I'm like, okay, well, I got to keep growing. So I went and looked up some personal development seminars, jumped into a Tony Robbins seminar, like signed up that week. Like, I got to grow. I got to keep on growing. I want to be the best version of myself. So I started down a deep path of personal growth. And I eventually found out, like, all of them was all personal power. It's all about your personal power. You can do everything on your own. You got this. And it was missing God and faith. And then I started doing research. I'm like, there's no personal development programs that are like faith-based, like no good ones, no really world-class, like top-notch, best in that class, like Christian personal development programs. Like, and so I saw that, and I loved working with men just because of my background and some of the struggles I've had with porn and, with cheating and just with the struggles of balance in business. And so I started putting together this program where guys could actually be intentional with every area of their lives and stay balanced and be in a Christian like group and Christian brotherhood of owners, of business owners, because it was lacking. Because I would go to church and I liked church, but the people that were at church, I didn't have a ton of rapport with because I was just a little different.
Sure.
I wasn't churchy,
Yeah, I get it. Totally understand that.
So I'm like, you know what? I want some cool, real guys. I want to be around real guys that are raw. I want to be around just Christian business owners. Honestly, like I didn't have that community.
Yeah, and some warriors.
Yep, totally. And so I designed Rise Up Kings around that. I'm like, cool. I'm going to create a whole program for badass, just cool Christian business guys that want to be together, that want to work on themselves, that want to break through and want to play at the highest level together as a group, as a community. And so I launched Rise Up Kings about 2 years ago, and it's just had insane, way more success than I ever imagined. And it's all God. Like I purposely set goals to launch it in a way that it wouldn't be me. So I literally, like, the first, like, everything about it, like God put it all together. I'm like, I'm going to go so big with this thing. The only way it could happen is with God. Cause I wanted to like test God. I wanted to go halfway, but I wanted God to meet. I wanted to do something where it was such a big risk. God would have to meet
I love it, dude.
other
I read
half.
Sun Stand Still by Stephen Furtick. He said you have to have a BHAP, a big, hairy, audacious prayer, something so big that it can never happen unless it was God. I have
Yeah.
that. That's why I love what you're saying.
Yeah, so that was in alignment. So I put on my first event, 2 months notice, got some friends, ended up being an epic experience, like epic, like really powerful. And then I started just doing it regularly, and now we're I think one of the only Christian boot camp personal development programs like of its kind, like that in the way we do it. It's really powerful, and so every class sells out each month, and it's impactful. Guys walk away with a whole new fire, like a intense fire. Anyway, I love it. That's what I love doing.
Do you have to go to the 3-day boot camp, the live, to do it? Because or is it? Can you do it?
Yeah.
Is it something you can do online or?
Yeah, no, it's all the 3-day experience, because it's like you kind of bleed in with these brothers, with these guys, and so yeah, because it's designed to create such a strong bond. Because
Sure.
what I realize, Rob, is that most guys are not playing at their full potential. Most women are not playing at their full potential. They're not giving their all. Like we're really giving like 50 or 70%. And I have a survey. I ask people, hey, in life, what percentage do you think you're playing at? 100%, meaning you're giving it all every day, or 50, 70, and almost everybody says 70%. So there's still gas left. So
Right.
why aren't people giving 100% in their marriage or their businesses or their fitness or their faith? And so we give this platform where people literally, like, we create the experience where they can give 100%, like leave every single ounce of themselves emotionally, physically on the field. And they walk away, they're like, holy crap, I'm capable of way more than I ever imagined based on how I showed up at this event. Like, I'm going to go bring this fire back to my business, like back to everything else. And so like, that's like, you got to there needs to be a fire. And so we help like reignite this like fire inside guys.
Love it. So after the 3-day, is it ongoing? Is there
Yeah.
like
There's
mastermind or?
Yeah, there's an invitation to join the mastermind, which is like accountability and a higher level, like training and business training in my 2-day-a-week CEO book that I'm launching. It's all that content on how do you scale and systemize your business, and how do you have passionate marriages? How do you bring masculinity in there? So yeah, it's a continued long-term program of association. So you go to war with these guys, and then you get to continue on with them, which is
Right.
pretty freaking cool. Like, just from all over the country. So we have about 90 guys right now in the mastermind. So we've had like 120, 130 people come through the program in the last like 18 months, because we had a gap because of COVID. And so anyway, that program, so Rob, it's key to be around people that hold you to a higher standard. Like, that's the key for success. Like, for your highest level success, the best way to reach your goals is to surround yourself with like the highest level people you can find that see you at a whole different level. And they're like, dude, you're playing small. Like, are you
Right.
kidding me? Why are you, like, you're playing way smaller than you're capable of,
Mm.
and then people that will hold you accountable and doing the daily disciplines and the routines and keeping, like, holding up, whether it's Rise Up Kings, whether it's other programs, or like a church, maybe group of people that do it, like whatever it is, we need people around us that are
Yeah.
like, that we're doing life with.
I love it. Yeah, I'm all about community, man. I mean, even as you were talking about your morning routine, it was challenging me because I used to get up at 4:30, and lately it's been like 5 or 5:30.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like today, I had my alarm set for 5:30, and I laid there till 6. And
Yep.
I'm like, and I thought when I got into the office today, I'm like, what could you have done with an extra hour and a half, 2 hours? Like a lot. And so just you saying that challenged me, and I know that when I get around, I got a buddy the guy actually that owns that restoration company. He gets up at 3:30 in the morning. He's in the gym by 4.
I love
And
it.
and he's got the money already. It's not like he doesn't need it. He already's got it, and he's still grinding. And his just a little secret of his is what he does is he sets his alarm for like 3 a.m. and it goes off. He's got a glass of pre-workout on his nightstand. He drinks it. He goes back to sleep. And then he says at 4 o'clock, at 3:30, he's like, bing. He wakes up wide awake because the pre-workout kicks in. And I'm like, dude, that's genius. But
Yeah.
but he super motivates me, like, to just take it up a notch. But that's good stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah. It's about I don't know. I feel like we kind of live lives that we try to get comfortable. We try to
Yeah.
find ways to find comfort. That was me for so many years. I'm like, oh, the goal of life and business is to get to a place of comfort. Nope. That is the worst place to get a man, is comfortable and bored. Like
Yeah.
literally, bored men create chaos. Like as you talked about with City Fam, right? Bored men and bored people will create chaos. They'll go do dumb stuff. We need to be creating and building and like living on the edge. And that's just where we perform the best. And
Right.
so it's not about comfort. Like pain is where it's at. Like pain, discomfort, like that is where it's at. That's where we can thrive. That's where we can stay on our toes. And life's way more fun that way. And
Hmm.
taking a big risk. So I was challenging in the mastermind today. Actually, I shot a video. I said, hey, where in your life are you playing comfortable? And like, if you feel that you're kind of comfortable, when was the last time you took such a big risk that there was actually could be a major repercussion, like in a positive way, like so big, like where you could lose everything?
Mm.
Like, when was the last time you took such a big risk that like your reputation was completely on the line or financially on the line? Like, that's where we turn on
Right.
as humans. But most guys are like, oh yeah, I could launch this business, but in a safe way.
Right.
Oh yeah, I did this, but in a really safe and controlled environment. Oh, I posted this, but in a safe. It's like, dude, go do something that's like scary. Where you're actually like, I am actually legitimately super scared right now. Like this is very scary.
Yeah.
Like, that's fun. Like that's where it's at.
What
So,
advice would you give to people, men or even women, that don't know their purpose?
yeah, so purpose purpose is really hard to find, your purpose and your calling. I mean, it is a very challenging thing to find. I've found that it's in the center of these three items. These three, I call like the purpose triangle. One is your life experience.
Mhm.
So what experiences in your life, good or bad, have created or have you gone through? And so whether it's abusive childhood or whether it's creating a lot of success in a certain area, like what life experiences do you have? Writing those down. And then two, another part of the point of the triangle is what lights you up? Like, what are you most excited about? Is it talking to people? Is it helping kids? Like, if you had $5 million in the bank, you didn't have to work, or 10 million, whatever it is. What would you do that you'd actually wake up excited every single day if you could do this? Is it camping? Is it like who cares what it is? What is it? What do you actually get lit up doing? And then the third one is, what's your unique gift? What do you think you're actually exceptional at? Like, what are you better at than most people? Is it cooking? Is it like talking with people? Is it empathy? Is it your heart connection? Is it how efficient you are?
Mhm.
Are you good at carpentry? Like, what are you actually uniquely gifted at? I feel like God gives people gifts.
Yeah.
So like, what's your God-given gift? Like, what's your God-given skill, or what's unique about your personality? And then how do you merge those three together? Like,
Yeah.
with your skill, like what you're good at, with your previous life experiences, and then with what ignites you, like what actually
Yeah.
fires you up. And so in the center is usually somewhere is kind of what God created you to do, and where you'll get fired up every day. And what I found is, when you're fired up every day, you will have the best chance of reaching your potential
Absolutely.
as a human being. That fire has to be there. You're not going to reach your potential without a fire. So you gotta be. There's got to be some fire there.
It's like Steve Jobs said. He's like, because it's going to require so much of you, like you're going to have to work so long. He's like, if you don't love it, you'll quit.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something that you're passionate about. Actually, I have a course that kind of helps people land on their purpose, and one of the exercises, I don't know if you've ever heard of Ikigai.
No.
So that's like a Japanese term, and it means reason to get out of bed in the morning. And there's four parts to it. It's kind of like what you're saying. It's like, uh, what does the world need? What can I make money at? What am I good at? And what do I like doing? So it's like,
Yeah.
the overlap of those four things
Yep.
is kind of,
Yep.
and I think, what I've found is, at least in my own life, is you kind of know at the area, like the direction it is. So I'm like, for me, it was always like something social. I was like, I know it's out in that area, it's something. So I just started doing things like socially, and it led me to it. I think where people get hung up is they probably know the direction it is, but they never step. because they don't have all the answers. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you just got
Mm-hmm.
to kind of move in that direction. I often compare it to like if you were a captain of a ship and you thought you saw land maybe in that area, like you see a little speck of something, you start sailing toward it. And eventually it gets bigger and then it gets clearer. And then you realize, and you're like, oh, wow, this is way bigger than I thought it was. And that's what it's like. But I don't think, like God doesn't tell you much. He just kind of gives you the direction and he expects you to walk in it. And if you do, he'll reveal more. And I think a lot of people get 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 hung up because they just get scared because they don't have all the answers.
They get scared they don't have all the answers, and yeah, they're not willing to take that risk and that jump.
Yeah.
Like take a risk. Like what's the worst that's going to happen? You lose all your stuff and you got to restart. I mean, it is what it is. Like so take a risk. Like go for your purpose. And I think another reason is people don't think they can make money. Like they think if you follow your life purpose, it's like being a pastor and like
Sure.
struggling and being a monk and living in Tibet. So it's like they see themselves as like, oh, it's if I follow my purpose, like totally not true. Nowadays you can make money, good money, following your calling and following your purpose. It's not all about that, but if you're strategic about it, you can find a way to generate income at the same time
Yeah.
and live a good lifestyle too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people use the excuse of responsibility. They think they're doing the responsible thing when really it's just fear.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're hanging on to the golden handcuffs got them because they don't want to let go of the paycheck to step out and take a risk, like you said.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy in the military a couple of days ago. He's in we do have a virtual program. Uh, and so it's not tied to the mastermind or the event or anything. And he was like, hey, he's like, hey, can I talk with you? He's like, have you ever helped anybody get out of the military? He has a startup and he feel like it's his passion. Like he loves it and he wants freedom. He's like, my goal in life is freedom, financial freedom and more time with my family. I'm like, okay, cool. Are you getting that from the military? He's like, well, no. He's like, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to, like, I need to do this because I need to give back and like, I need to support my country and like all this stuff. And that's why I'm not willing to take the risk. Is like, I'm just not willing to jump out. I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. So you feel like you're supposed to do this. So if you had 200, if you were guaranteed $200,000 a year for your business, and your business right now, if you were to leave, would generate $200,000 a year and you could spend more time with your family, would you leave the military? And he's like, yeah, I guess I would. So I'm like, it's straight fear.
Right.
It's uncertainty. That's the only reason you're not leaving the military. It's not because you have a higher purpose. It's not because you have a higher calling or you're this man that you want to serve your country. It's because you're afraid you can't make the money when you get on the other side. So like, that's the only reason. And so it was just clarity for him. He's like, oh shoot. Okay. I guess because he's like, I'm not fearful of it. He's like, I have no fear about leaving it. I'm like, yeah, you do. You're afraid to leave the military because of uncertainty. You don't know how it's going to play out.
100%. And it's that process of going from the certainty to the uncertainty that really shapes you into being the person that I believe God meant for you to be. Because this is what I was saying to somebody just last week is like, when you step out, okay, you're in Egypt, and I really compare everything. I look back at the Old Testament when God took the Israelites out of Egypt. They were slaves. They were making bricks, but not all of them were, they weren't made born to make bricks. A lot of them were probably born to be blacksmiths or gardeners or, farmers or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have that opportunity in Egypt because they were slaves. But now they got fed in Egypt. The Egyptians fed them their 3 square meals, but they weren't necessarily happy. Mm-hmm. But God says, look, I want to take you to a promised land, this better place where you will be free to own your own homes and do all these other things. But they had to go into the wilderness to get there. And during the wilderness period is when you really learn to trust God because you're relying on the manna now because there's no food in the wilderness. And God's got to show up every day. He had to give the manna and he had to lead them by the fire and the cloud. And that's where they really learned to trust God so that when they got in the promised land, they had a great relationship and their faith was, through the roof. And that's what I believe God does with each person, because I've known in my own life as I've stepped away from things that were making money that weren't godly, I've had to like scrap and wait for God to show up. And he did. And my faith is like really strong now, but it wasn't always fun, like it's not fun to rely on God. It's you're always kind of shaky and you're insecure and you're like walking on water, like, oh crap, am I going to sink? Or, it's super uncomfortable.
I love that. It was, I was just reading that actually a couple of days ago, and in there, I guess the promised land was, it was either 3 or 8 miles, so it was less than 10 miles away
Yeah.
from where they were supposed to go. It took them, how
40
long was it?
years.
It was years.
40
So
years.
yeah, so years, and it was so close, but God purposely led them into different areas. He wasn't willing to take them straight there because he did want to deepen their relationship. Like that was what it was. He wanted them in the wilderness so they would rely on him and always remember him.
Yeah.
And so they would have that relationship when they went in the promised land. And so some people are staying in a safe place where they're not going into the wilderness and they're not taking that risk. And so they therefore never really get to deepen their relationship with God and truly trust him.
Yeah.
Me taking a lunge with a leap with Rise Up Kings caused me to rely on God completely.
Right.
When I made this plunge, this big jump to this whole new arena. And so the wilderness is important. It's important, and it's I love that you even brought that up. Very cool.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
what's one of the best testimonies you've gotten from one of the guys that have gone through your programs? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, no, I mean, not. There's so many. So we get testimonies from pretty much everybody that comes through, and they're all pretty powerful. They're on our website, and I would say the number one theme is guys when they go through the program, they tap into a different side of themselves. And so a different side, a different vulnerable like power that they haven't been tapped into, their power as a man. And so when they go home, they start bringing this power to their family and to their business, and with an intentionality of staying balanced. So the regular messages that I get, I mean, I got one a couple of days ago, was, hey, like my life is completely changed. My marriage is on fire. I'm killing it in business. I'm reading the Bible daily, and I'm working out every day. So like my life is like just overall like on fire. And so I get, those are my favorite. I get those regularly where guys are like, hey, and really the funnest part is for me is their marriage. Going back and being intentional with their marriage and reigniting that fire is like the most rewarding part of probably that whole thing. Just knowing, because if I can keep, and my mission is, if I can keep, because the thing is we have our sin nature is so strong, and we have these Christians that want to be leaders, but they're sinning, their habits are bad, they're overweight, not taking care of their body, they're watching lustful things they shouldn't be looking at, like all this stuff, and it's given a bad rep for Christians.
Yeah.
So if I can help men become like Christians that glorify God by the way they live,
Yeah.
they're working out, they're creating wealth and success, because people are attracted to that right now.
Yeah.
So if I can help men live that life where they're like on point and it glorifies God, that's one of the biggest things that I could possibly do. If I can help a guy have more sex with his wife and have a deeper marriage, and now he's in the community and people, because who wants to be like a Christian guy that is married, but no, they're having no sex and there's no passion.
Right.
And he's broke and he's overweight, but he loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be like that guy.
Yeah.
Like, just period. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I want your life.
Right.
So how do I create more, like my mission is to create more men that are represented and show up as kings, that are like living these lives that are pretty powerful, where we're attracting people to the kingdom now by the way we operate and by the way we live. So that's my very clear mission, is the more men I can get living that lifestyle, the better.
I'm going to introduce you to a guy named Paul Lewis Cole. He's got the Brave Men podcast. You got to meet him. You got to go on that podcast and talk about this, because they're in like 138 countries, and it's all about men and having men assume their position, in the world, and making strong men again.
Yes.
And what that does, like he had the stat actually. This is his magazine here, Christian Men's Network is the thing that he heads up. But I remember reading in here, if a man comes to Jesus, becomes a Christian, the chances of the family becoming Christian are like 90-some%. Where if the woman of the house comes to Jesus, it's like 17 or something. I'm like, wow, that's powerful.
We have a crazy important role. And so we do need to step up as men Because when we're not, so what I found is there's a lot of my wife actually just launched Rise Up Queens. So she has her first event. She's doing it in a couple weeks with 40 women. And it's all about tapping into their feminine side of themselves. Because right now, it's the big push socially is for women to be more masculine and take on their masculine role in the family, in the business, and everywhere else. So she's really anti what's going on. So she's getting some haters, but she's all about having women step into their feminine. But the challenge is, if we're not becoming better men and stronger men, our tendency when our women start to rise is to try to push them down because we're a little insecure.
Right.
So as they start rising, I noticed that with myself. Like as Jessica started rising, because she's a powerful woman, my natural tendency was to like kind of push her down. And I caught it. I journaled on it multiple times. I'm like, why did I say that? I'm like, dude, I'm like literally trying to kind of cut her down because it's just my own insecurity. So if we can support men in rising up, women will rise up at the same time with them, as opposed to this battle that's happening right now. So yeah.
Great.
Strong men it's needed.
I heard something a while back from a Christian guy. He said men need to be winning in the three areas: the ball, what they said, the boardroom, the bedroom, and the ball field.
Yep.
You got to be winning in business with your wife, and then athletically, like you got to be in good shape. So it's everything that you're saying. But tell people how they can find you on social media.
Awesome. Yeah. So social media, it's Skylar, SKYLAR, Lewis, LEWIS. That's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then really Rise Up Kings and YouTube actually. But riseupkings.com is our main site for any guys that are interested in leveling up in those areas.
Love it, man. Yep. Love everything that you're doing, and I want to talk to you offline too. But thanks again for coming on. I'll let you get back to it. I know you got probably lots of business affairs with all those things happening.
Yep. Awesome, brother. It was great being on the show. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Skylar.